There's one thing that every single high ticket closer does that feels completely normal, but it's the exact reason why the deal dies. And it's not your objection handling, it's not your pitch, it's something that happens underneath all of that. And once you notice it on a call, you can't unnotice it. It's there and it's there in the open. For those who don't know me, my name is Samim. Been in the high ticket sales space for the last 2 years. Went from, athlete, high level, played soccer, to then, getting into the space as an SDR, worked my way up. I was basically cold calling, dialing leads for a long time, or not a long time, I would say like 5-6 months. Worked my way up to one of the biggest teams in info, closed over $10 million in cash collected as a closer, selling like a $9,800 package. Went from $0 to $100,000 in less than a year as a closer, did $1 million in a single month, cash collected. As you guys see here, these are just a few of my commission stamps from my career. And in my time as a rep, I saw so many, reps come and go. And I noticed one very common theme amongst most reps. And the only way I actually noticed it was going through it myself and then seeing other reps do the exact same thing. And the thing that feels completely right is simply just detaching from the outcome and not needing the close. Now, that's how you should be like on calls. Now, most closers, their instinct is to be hungry for the sale, want the sale, and actually just be very aggressive towards, getting the outcome that you're looking for in a call. When in reality, that's actually not how you should be on calls, right? You should be very detached from any single outcome on any sort of sales call. The idea of not caring whether you close feels lazy, right? But it's actually not. Now, what I mean by that is it's not about not caring about the deal. It's not about not caring about making money. It's about not prioritizing making money, right? The thing that you should be prioritizing on a sales call is getting to the truth. Once you get to the truth, once you seek the truth and you actually get outcomes on calls, whether that's people doing it or not, right? And you start optimizing for that rather than getting on a call and making sure that you extract every single penny out of the person that you speak to. Once you start optimizing for the first thing, that's when you'll start making a lot more money. I lived this, right? When I was 21 years old, about 2 years ago, I got my first big break, right? My first real opportunity on one of the biggest teams in info as a closer, right? They were doing around $2 million a month at the time. We ended up scaling to $4 or $5 million a month. And in my first few months, I had a few, rough months where I was like the new kid on the block, right? I was so hungry on calls. I was getting on every single call, trying to extract every single cent I could. And that was really showing on calls. I didn't really notice it when I was doing it. And over time, it took a certain sales call where I finally, realized that. But I was doing exactly what every single closer's instinct is to go hard for the sale and just make sure that, just fully get the outcome of making commissions. When I first got on that offer as a closer, but I was so hungry, man, and I was so hungry for the wrong thing. I was so hungry for the commissions, to get those milestones of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but when I was getting on calls, the first thing that I was optimizing for was, like I said, making as much money as possible. Now, those first 3 months, closing on that offer were the most defining moments of my career, because I realized the hard way, most high ticket closers, most salespeople, their thought process is all wrong, right? They get on calls, incredibly hungry for commissions, and that actually shows on calls. I had to lose a bunch of deals before I realized, holy shit, I'm actually doing this completely the wrong way. The way I like to describe what this actually is, right? The way I like to describe, when you're optimizing for the wrong thing on a call, when you're optimizing for money, right? When you get on calls and the only thing that you care about is making money, what I like to call this is I like to call it commission breath. It's when that you're on a call with somebody and they can literally smell your commission breath. They can smell the fact that you want to make a sale here. And it's not a thing they realize themselves subconsciously. It's a thing that they just feel on a call. They feel the neediness, the hungriness for the outcome, for the sale itself. And that shows in a sales call. Prospects can't name and or point fingers at it, but they feel it, right? And the moment they feel it, they go half in, half out, and they don't come back. And once they feel that, the deal is dead. It's very, very, very rare where, when you have commission breath on a sales call, you can actually recover and you can actually come back. And one call I'll remember for the rest of my life was with a guy named Larry. Typical American guy. He was in his late 60s, chiropractor. And that was a typical ICP for my offer back then. It was older guy who wants to just retire earlier. And I remember getting on the call with him, and he was basically telling me we got to the end of the call, and I was asking him if he wants to do it, if he sees the value, all these different things. And he was kind of giving me half and half answers, and I was still trying to convince and persuade him. He said something along the lines of why do you want the sale more than me? And I remember hearing that and thinking, holy shit, this guy's right. why the fuck do I want the sale more than him? Then I realized, holy shit, I've lost a bunch of deals because I've come across nowhere where I'm like, too hungry, too needy for the sale. Looking back at it, I never firstly got to the full truth of the situation. I didn't fully understand, where he was right now, where he wanted to be, how big the gap was. I didn't really understand, what his situation looked like if he didn't change. I didn't get any emotional drivers. All I was trying to do was sell this guy, right? And when you try to sell, that's the first mistake you make, because nobody wants to be sold to. Okay, nobody ever wants to be sold to, and typically 99.9% of prospects, they get on call with their guard up automatically because they know what this is. They're not stupid. Now, one thing I want to go over on this call is like the actual mechanism behind why needing the sale actually close a deal, right? When you need to close, you stop getting to the truth of someone's situation. You start asking more surface level questions. You start taking surface level answers. And the key thing about this is you're gonna avoid the real questions because a hard answer might lose a deal. Like you're afraid to cause friction on a call because you're afraid like, okay, if I cause friction on a call, if I get this person, if I put him on the back foot, if I say something wrong that might ruffle his feathers, like he's not gonna pay. And when you start, getting on calls with that mindset, with that feeling, right? That's when you can't actually operate at the best of your ability. And honestly, like for me, I was never one to always care about money. It was more the pressure of like, being on a new offer, being the new guy on the block, and just wanting to perform and wanting to impress. And, I started letting that get in the way of like, actually just doing my job to the best of my ability. And the best analogy I can actually, give you guys to explain to you guys how it works is like, when I was a soccer player and I used to play uptight and I used to play nervous, I used to never perform. I used to always just shit the bed, like genuinely I'd get the ball, I'd panic, I'd start giving the ball away, I'd start dribbling, I just wasn't being myself when I was playing uptight and nervous. My best games always came from me when I was just playing with no pressure whatsoever. When I was just free of the mind, I'd get in the game, I'd just play completely free of the mind, and I'd perform the best. And it's the exact same thing, right? An athlete playing loose performs better every single time. An athlete who plays tight, trying to force the outcome, tenses up, and doesn't execute the things that come naturally. They don't even do the basics correctly, which is literally the exact same thing when it comes to sales, right? When you're a salesperson, you get on a call, and you're nervous, you're uptight, you come from a place of scarcity. That's going to reflect on the call. People are going to notice that, and it's going to cost you a lot of deals. And the moment you need something from someone, you lose leverage in the conversation. Okay, it doesn't matter how good your tonality is or how smooth your transitions are. Needlessness leaks out in ways you can't fully control. And yeah, it just shows on your entire call with what you're saying and how you're saying it. Now, being detached isn't about, not caring. It's about caring more for the truth than you do about commissions. More about, caring about somebody's actual problems and understanding the root of their problems compared to your commission stamp at the end of the month. Your only job in a sales call is to find out if this person has a real problem and if they actually need what you're selling. Because when you come from a place of like, getting on calls and somebody, is being very cold and just, service level and they don't come across in a way where they need what you're selling or, where they actually want it, then you gotta, as your job as a salesperson is to, take it away from them and say, look, at the end of the day, man, like, speaking to you for the last 10 minutes, I'm trying to understand why we're on this call. And to me, I'm still trying to understand, and it just doesn't seem like, this is something that you really want or even need in your situation. When you start doing things like that more on calls, you start, coming across as somebody who doesn't give a fuck if somebody's gonna, pay at the end of the call or not. And for a lot of people, like, like I said, you get on calls, like they're just tire kickers, right? You ask them questions, you're feeling them out in the call, they're not responding, and they're just wasting their own time, they're wasting your time. And when you start treating the tire kickers like that, the buyers who get on your calls, the way you come across them, they're gonna buy more into you and how you are and what you're saying. But when you come from a place of absolute scarcity, like, and your frame is, like you needing them to buy more than you, it's almost like if this person doesn't buy, you're gonna lose your job, right? That's basically how a lot of people act when they're on sales calls. And when that's your frame, like I said, the questions are weaker, they just don't land the same. But when you're somebody who's getting on a call and you're completely abundant in this person paying or not, and if this person doesn't pay, the next one will, and if this person doesn't pay, the next one will. And when you have that frame, when you have that mindset on a sales call, the questions get harder, the answers get realer, and close happens either way, naturally or doesn't. But you start losing deals you should have won, right? And it's all about always closing the deals that you should be closing, right? Because there's some deals, I'm a big believer in, there's some deals, like a lot of people in the space will tell you like, yeah, every single lead that gets on a call is closable, and it's not the reality, okay? The best salespeople, Jordan Belfort, for example, there's some leads that, that you speak to and he couldn't close, right? And once you start thinking about it that way, and once you start more, optimizing more for the truth, then when you're gonna, then that's when your whole career is gonna, flip upside down. It's the exact same thing that happened with me when I had that call. What detachment actually is, it's not caring. It's just caring more about the truth rather than like, how much money you make at the end of the month, or, what your record commission month will be like, right? Once you start optimizing for the truth, once you start acting more like somebody who cares about finding the real core problem that somebody has, then by proxy, you're gonna make more money, right? Your questions will land harder. The answers that you get will be more real. The conversations that you have will be more authentic. And after the call that I had with Larry, it was a pretty defining moment in my career, because I started to think about all the deals that I lost because of the fact that I was just so commission hungry. And I changed my frame completely. I'd go into calls just, free the mind, not giving a fuck. I just go into calls acting like I'm the guy, and I'm the guy that's here to find the truth, and that's it, right? And once I started optimizing for that, over time, I lost commission breath. And like I said, in the span of 1 year, in the first 3 months, I wasn't a good closer. I was, doing well, but I wasn't doing as well as I could have been doing, right? If I would have adopted that from the get-go, I would have been making a lot more money. But it takes a certain moment in your career for you to realize that what you're doing right now is not the right thing, and it's not serving you in the best way. It's like a prospect, right? When a prospect gets on a sales call, typically something happened in their situation in their life where they realize, like, what I'm doing is not getting me where I want to get to. The $1 million question is, how do you actually even get detached? And it's not a mindset shift that you have. It's not a speech that you give yourself in the morning every single day when you wake up. It's a decision made before the call even starts. This person is either a fit or not, and your job is to find out which one it is, right? Stop acting like a closer. Stop getting on calls simply trying to close, and start acting more like a detective. Once you take that frame over time, you're just going to close more deals. It's just a natural progression of, not optimizing for somebody just paying you or not. And this is actually an exercise I performed, and it helped me a lot. At the age of 21, I got my first big break, and I got a big opportunity. And I faced a lot of adversity in my career. I faced a lot of people shitting on me, saying I couldn't do something, and just who didn't believe in me, right? When I was 18 years old, I made the hard decision of not going to school, not going to university, and just, losing a lot of people along the way who just thought I was going to be a bum. The person that I became after 3 years of facing a lot of, trials and tribulations, I just thought about all the progress I made, and instantly when I thought about that, it just gave me a different level of self-belief. So I want, the person who's watching this video to really think about it themselves as well. Like, think about where you were in your life 3-4 years ago. Think about how much progress you made. Think about the person that you became, not the amount of money you made, not anything. Like, just think about who you became as a man, or as a woman if you're watching this as a woman. And when you think about, the levels that you crossed in life, the achievements that you've made, the places that you've traveled, the things that you've done that not many people have done, when you start thinking about it like that, that's gonna, breed a different level of self-belief in yourself. Now, that mindset only sticks if you're actually living your life in a way that backs it up, right? Taking care of yourself, training, showing up, doing the things that you need to do every single day to get the outcomes that you're looking for, okay? Because if you're somebody who wants a certain thing in life but their actions don't show accordingly, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's again going to reflect on calls, and that's going to reflect on how you are as a person. That single mindset shift was the biggest reason I was able to outperform every single person that was competing against me month on month. Like, by the age of 23 years old, I was able to do things that most people couldn't even achieve in 10 years in a sales career. When I first started my career, I was around somebody who did $100 million in sales in the ad tech space. So I was around top level guys. And once I started kind of seeing the way they operate, seeing the way they move, seeing the way they view life, and started acting, started trying to not mimic them, but just try to be like the top 1%. That's where I got to. And, selling on an offer that was completely cold, it was ice cold pay traffic, no organic leads. To do what I did was a lot more than just, learning skill of sales, because sales is a skill. At the end of the day, you have to be skilled. There's no doubt about that. But I believe what separates the top 5% to the top 1% are the ones their mind's a little different. It's getting to that mindset of myself allowed me to have better conversations, have more friction on calls, which is actually a good thing, because a lot of people avoid friction, and you shouldn't avoid friction. If you avoid friction in a sales call, you're doing something wrong. If you actually have friction on sales calls, you're going to close a fuck ton more deals. But having that mindset about myself and getting on calls, people bought into me, right? I'm a big believer that people buy from people. So if you want to make the most amount of money, you have to be a certain type of person to do that, right? Again, you can be you know, making 10, 15K a month and be comfortable with that. And if that's where you're happy to be, like, amazing. But if you want to get to that next level where you're clearing 30, 40, 50, 60K a month consistently, like, it takes a certain person to go through that mental shift in their brain to get to that outcome. Once you have that frame, once you get on calls with that frame, like, your commissions will explode and you're going to level up as a human being as well. But yeah, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.